A 9-year-old boy covered in bruises walked into a Hells Angels clubhouse. He found the biggest, scariest man in the room and said 5 words that stopped everything. "You can be my dad." The man had lost his own son 3 years ago. He hadn't felt anything since, until this broken child looked at him with desperate eyes and asked for something no one else would give. The next day, 79 motorcycles showed up at Tommy's school. What happened next would change an entire town. If this satisfies your heart, please like, comment, and follow. Tommy couldn't remember the last time he didn't hurt. His ribs ached where Kyle had kicked him in the bathroom that morning. His back burned where his stepfather's belt had found him last night. His eye was swelling shut from the punch Marcus had thrown at recess. 9 years old, and pain was all he knew. He walked down the street without knowing where he was going. Couldn't go home, not yet. His stepfather Rick would be drunk by now, and Tommy had learned that walking in during the first hour of drinking was the most dangerous time. Better to wait until Rick passed out. Couldn't go to a friend's house. Tommy didn't have friends. Hard to make friends when you're the kid everyone beats up. Hard to invite people over when your stepdad might decide to use you as a punching bag in front of them. Couldn't go to the police. He'd tried that once, 2 years ago. Rick had convinced them Tommy was clumsy, accident-prone, a troubled kid who made up stories for attention. Tommy's mother had backed him up, her eyes empty, her voice flat. Nobody helped. Nobody ever helped. So Tommy walked. The Thunder Road clubhouse appeared out of nowhere. Tommy had passed it 100 times without really seeing it. A squat brick building at the edge of downtown with motorcycles parked outside and music thumping through the walls. Everyone in town knew what it was, the Hells Angels headquarters. The place mothers warned their children about. Stay away from those men. They're dangerous. They're criminals. Tommy wasn't afraid of criminals. Criminals were strangers. Strangers had never hurt him. The people who hurt him were the ones who were supposed to love him. The door was heavy. Tommy had to push with his whole body to open it. The smell hit him first. Beer, cigarettes, leather, then the sound, rock music, loud voices, the crack of pool balls, then silence. Every head in the room turned toward him. Tommy stood in the doorway, a small boy with a black eye and bruised arms, looking at a room full of men who could have crushed him with one hand. He should have been terrified, should have run. Instead, he walked inside. Hank, Bear Morrison, saw the boy first. He was sitting in his usual corner, nursing his 3rd whiskey of the afternoon, staring at the photograph he always carried. His son, Matthew, 9 years old forever, frozen in time, smiling at the camera on the last good day they ever had. 3 years since the accident. 3 years since Hank had felt anything but emptiness and rage. He didn't want to feel. Feeling meant remembering. Remembering meant drowning. Then the door opened and a child walked in. Hank's first thought was, "Wrong place, kid. This isn't somewhere you should be." His second thought was, "Those bruises aren't from playing." The boy was scanning the room with eyes that were too old for his face, searching for something or someone. Then those eyes found Hank, and the boy walked straight toward him. "What do you think you're doing, kid?" Hank's voice came out harsher than he intended. "This isn't a daycare." The boy didn't flinch, didn't back away, just stood there, looking up at Hank with an expression that made the big man's chest tight. "You look sad," the boy said. "What? You look sad, like you lost something important." The boy glanced at the photograph in Hank's hand. "Is that your kid?" Hank's throat closed. He couldn't answer. "He looks nice." The boy paused. "Is he dead?" "Yeah." The word came out like a wound. "Yeah, he's dead. I'm sorry." The boy said it simply, sincerely, like he understood grief in a way no 9-year-old should. "My dad is dead too. My real dad. Now I have Rick, but he's not really my dad. He just hits me." Hank looked at the bruises, really looked at them. Fresh ones and old ones, yellow and purple and black. A map of abuse written across a child's body. "Your stepdad does that to you?" "Him and the kids at school, everyone pretty much." The boy shrugged like it was normal, like it was just the way the world worked. "My mom says I bring it on myself, that I need to try harder to fit in. but I don't know how to fit in when everyone already decided I'm the kid to hurt." Hank felt something crack in his chest, something that had been frozen for 3 years. "What's your name, kid?" Tommy Baker." "Tommy, why are you here? How did you even know about this place?" "Everyone knows about it. Everyone says to stay away because you're all dangerous." Tommy looked around the room, at the leather vests, the tattoos, the hard faces watching him. "But you don't seem dangerous to me. You just seem sad, like me." "No, we are dangerous, kid. You should go home." "I can't go home. Rick's drinking." "Then go somewhere else. A friend's house." "I don't have friends." "Family?" "My mom won't help. My grandma's dead. My real dad is dead. There's no one." Tommy said it without self-pity, just stating facts, the loneliest facts Hank had ever heard. "So you came here?" "I was walking. I didn't know where to go. And then I saw this place and I thought—" Tommy hesitated. Then the words came out in a rush. "I thought maybe someone here would help me, because everyone says you're bad, but the people who are supposed to be good don't help at all, so maybe bad people are actually better." Hank didn't know what to say. This child's logic was heartbreaking and somehow completely correct. "What kind of help do you need, Tommy?" Tommy looked at him, really looked, with those 2 old eyes in that 2 young face. "You can be my dad," he said, "if you want. I know your real son is dead and I know I'm not him. But I don't have a dad, and you don't have a kid, and maybe we could help each other." The room was completely silent. 30 Hell's Angels watched a bruised 9-year-old boy ask a broken man to be his father. And Hank Morrison felt something he hadn't felt in 3 years. He felt alive. Hank didn't say yes, he couldn't. This wasn't how the world worked. You couldn't just adopt a random kid who walked into a biker bar. There were laws, procedures, social workers who would never approve someone like him. But he didn't say no either. "Sit down, Tommy. Let me get a look at those bruises." Tommy climbed onto the bar stool next to Hank without hesitation, like he'd already decided to trust this stranger completely. "Doc!" Hank called across the room. "Get over here!" A grey-haired man with steady hands approached. Doc had been the club's medic for 20 years, patching up injuries that couldn't go to hospitals, treating wounds that would raise too many questions. He looked at Tommy with gentle eyes. "Mind if I check you out, son? Are you a real doctor?" "Used to be, long time ago." Tommy nodded and held out his arms. Doc examined him methodically, the bruises on his arms, the welts on his back, the fading marks on his ribs. His expression grew darker with each discovery. "When's the last time you saw a real doctor, Tommy?" "I don't remember. Maybe when I was little. Rick says doctors are too expensive." "These injuries on your back, they're from a belt." "Yeah. Rick uses the one with the big buckle when he's really mad." Doc and Hank exchanged looks. This wasn't normal discipline. This was systematic abuse. "And school? Kids did the rest? Kyle and Marcus and their friends. They wait for me in the bathroom or behind the gym, wherever teachers don't go." Tommy said it matter-of-factly. "They call me names too, but the hitting is worse." "Have you told anyone? Teachers? The principal?" "They don't believe me. Kyle's dad is on the school board. Marcus's mom works in the office." Tommy looked down. "Nobody believes the weird kid over the popular kids." Hank's hands were shaking, not from fear, from rage. "What about your mom, Tommy? Does she know about any of this?" "She knows about Rick. She just pretends not to. I think she's scared of him too." Tommy's voice dropped. "She used to be nice before Dad died. Now she's just gone, like she's there but not really there." "When did your dad die?" 4 years ago. Car accident. Mom married Rick 6 months later." Tommy pulled at a loose thread on his shirt. "I don't think she loves him. I think she was just scared of being alone." This child. This 9-year-old child who understood more about adult dysfunction than most adults did. "Tommy," Hank said carefully, "what would you want? If you could have anything? If someone could actually help you?" Tommy was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "I want someone to want me, not because they have to, because they actually want me." He looked at Hank with shining eyes. "Everyone I have treats me like I'm a problem, like I'm in the way. I just want to be." Wanted. Hank thought about Matthew, about the way his son used to look at him like he hung the moon, about the emptiness that had consumed him since that look disappeared forever. "I can't be your dad, Tommy. Not legally. Not the way you're thinking." Tommy's face crumpled. "But," Hank continued, "I can be something else. I can be someone who looks out for you, someone who shows up when you need help, someone who makes sure nobody hurts you anymore." "How?" Hank looked around the room, at his brothers, who had been listening to every word. "Because I'm not alone, and starting tomorrow, neither are you." The call went out that night. Hank explained the situation to Diesel, the club president, explained about Tommy, about the abuse, about the school that looked the other way. Diesel listened without interrupting. Then he made calls of his own. By midnight, 79 Hell's Angels had confirmed they would ride at dawn. "This is new territory," Diesel said. "We don't usually get involved in stuff like this." "I know. Social services, school administration, maybe even cops. There could be blowback." "I know. You willing to deal with that? For a kid you just met?" Hank thought about Tommy's face, about the hope in his eyes when he asked if Hank could be his dad, about the way that hope had flickered when Hank said no. "He walked into our clubhouse because he had nowhere else to go, because the people who were supposed to protect him failed him at every level. His stepdad beats him. Kids at school beat him. His mom won't help. The teachers won't help. The police won't help." Hank's voice hardened. "If we don't help him, Diesel, who will?" Diesel was quiet for a long moment. 79 bikes. Dawn. Cedar Hill Elementary. He smiled grimly. "Let's give that school something to remember." Tommy didn't sleep that night. Hank had walked him home, staying out of sight, making sure Rick wasn't waiting on the porch with a belt. The house was dark. Rick's truck was in the driveway. "You going to be okay tonight?" "I'll be quiet. If I'm quiet, he doesn't notice me. Tomorrow, when you get to school, don't be scared if you see something unusual." "And what kind of unusual?" "The good kind." Hank crouched down to Tommy's level. "I meant what I said. You're not alone anymore. Starting tomorrow, everyone's going to know it." Tommy didn't understand, but he trusted Hank. This stranger, this scary biker, this man who had looked at him like he mattered. Okay. He slipped inside. The house was quiet. Rick was passed out on the couch, beer cans scattered around him like fallen soldiers. Tommy crept to his room, locked the door, lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling. For the first time in 4 years, he let himself hope. The next morning, Cedar Hill Elementary got a wake-up call. It started as a rumble. Distant thunder on a clear day. Teachers looked up from their desks. Students looked up from their phones. Then the motorcycles appeared. 79 Harleys, riding in perfect formation down Main Street toward the school. Chrome gleaming, engines roaring. A wall of leather and metal and pure intimidation. They filled the parking lot, the street. Every available space within 100 yards of the building. Parents dropping off kids stared in disbelief. Teachers ran to windows. The principal came out the front door, face white, phone in hand. "What is the meaning of this? This is a school. You can't—" Hank dismounted at the front of the formation. He was wearing his full colors, the patches, the vest, everything that marked him as someone not to be challenged. "We're here to see Tommy Baker." "Tommy Baker? What do you want with—" "We're here to make sure he gets to school safely, and to make sure nobody hurts him while he's here." The principal sputtered. This is completely inappropriate." "You know what's inappropriate?" Hank stepped closer. "A 9-year-old boy covered in bruises, getting beaten at school every day while teachers look the other way. That's inappropriate." "I don't know what you're talking about. Kyle Morrison, Marcus Webb, they've been assaulting Tommy for months." "You've been told. You've done nothing." Hank's voice was ice. "That ends today." The school bus pulled up. The door opened. Tommy stepped off. He saw the motorcycles first, then the men standing beside them, then Hank at the front, looking at him with something Tommy had never seen directed at him before. Pride. "Hey, kid. Told you you weren't alone anymore." Tommy's eyes filled with tears. He ran across the parking lot and threw himself at Hank, hugging him so hard he could barely breathe. "You came. You actually came." Of course I came. Hank hugged him back. I'll always come. Behind them, 78 Hell's Angels stood in formation, silent, watchful. A wall of protection that no bully, no teacher, no administrator would dare challenge. The message was clear. This boy is ours now. Hurt him at your own risk. And Tommy Baker, for the first time in his life, felt what it meant to have a family. The school had never seen anything like it. 79 bikers didn't leave after the morning confrontation. They stayed, parked their motorcycles in orderly rows, set up chairs in the parking lot, made it clear they weren't going anywhere. Parents called the police. The police came, assessed the situation, and left. They're not breaking any laws, Officer Daniels told the principal. It's a public street. They can be here, but this is intimidation. Is it? They haven't threatened anyone, haven't touched anyone, they're just present. Daniels looked at the wall of leather and chrome. Maybe ask yourself why they're here in the first place. The principal didn't have a good answer for that. Inside the school, everything changed. Kyle Morrison walked past Tommy in the hallway. Their eyes met. For a moment, Kyle's face twisted into its usual sneer. Then he saw Hank through the window, watching. Kyle walked away without a word. Marcus Webb avoided Tommy entirely, took different routes between classes, kept his head down. The teachers noticed, the other students noticed, everyone noticed. Tommy Baker, the kid everyone ignored or hurt, suddenly had an army behind him. "This is crazy," one teacher muttered in the break room. "We can't have gang members intimidating our students." "They're not intimidating students," another replied. "They're protecting one student. The one we failed to protect." "We didn't fail. Kyle Morrison has been beating Tommy Baker for 6 months. We've had reports. We've had complaints. What did we do?" Silence. "Exactly. Maybe we should be grateful someone finally stepped up." The meeting happened at 2 p.m. Hank was invited inside, reluctantly, by a principal who had no choice. The school board had been contacted. CPS had been contacted. Everyone was scrambling to understand what was happening and how to make it go away. "Mr. Morrison," Principal Hartwell began, "while we appreciate your concern for Tommy Baker, this kind of display is inappropriate and disruptive to the educational environment. More disruptive than a child being beaten in your bathrooms? We have no evidence. You have plenty of evidence. You've had it for months." Hank pulled out a folder, compiled by Ghost overnight, containing every incident report, every nurse visit, every documented injury Tommy had suffered on school property. 18 separate incidents, 3 trips to the nurse with visible bruising, 2 complaints from Tommy himself, 0 actions taken. Principal Hartwell's face went pale. "Where did you get this? Does it matter? The point is, you knew, you all knew, and you did nothing because the kids doing the hurting had parents with influence, and Tommy was just the weird kid nobody cared about. That's not—" "Save it." Hank stood up. "Here's what's going to happen. Kyle Morrison and Marcus Webb are going to face real consequences. Suspension at minimum, expulsion if this continues, and the school is going to implement actual anti-bullying protocols. Not posters, not assemblies, real intervention. You can't dictate school policy. I'm not dictating anything. I'm informing you what needs to happen to keep my brothers from becoming a permanent fixture in your parking lot." Hank leaned forward. "We'll be here every day. Morning drop-off, afternoon pickup. Every day until Tommy graduates, if that's what it takes." "That's years. I've got time." Principal Hartwell stared at this man, this criminal, this outlaw, who was doing more for one student than the entire school administration had done in months. I'll speak to the school board. Do that. And while you're at it, speak to CPS about what's happening at Tommy's home, because the bruises he doesn't get here, he gets those from his stepfather." The color drained from Hartwell's face. "We had no idea. You didn't look." Hank headed for the door. "Start looking." CPS arrived at Tommy's house that evening. 2 social workers, a police officer as escort, official paperwork and serious expressions. Rick answered the door with a beer in his hand. "What the hell is this?" "Mr. Thornton, We're from Child Protective Services. We've received reports of abuse concerning your stepson, Tommy Baker. We need to speak with you and your wife." "Abuse? That's ridiculous. Tommy's fine. He's clumsy, falls down a lot, but, sir, we have documented evidence of extensive bruising consistent with physical assault. This isn't a conversation. It's a notification. We're conducting an investigation, and Tommy will need to be examined by a physician." Rick's face turned red, then purple. "This is because of those bikers, isn't it? They put you up to this? I'll sue every one of them." "Sir, the bikers didn't file this report. The school did." The social worker remained calm. "Can we come inside?" What they found inside confirmed everything. Tommy's room had a lock on the outside of the door. The walls were thin, the furniture broken. In the corner, a belt with a metal buckle, the one Rick used when he was really mad. Tommy's mother, Linda, sat on the couch like a ghost. She didn't protest, didn't defend Rick, just sat there with empty eyes, nodding when asked questions. "Ma'am, were you aware your husband was physically abusing your son?" "He's not my husband, just my boyfriend." "Were you aware?" Long pause, then barely audible, "Yes." "Did you participate in the abuse?" "No, I didn't stop it." Tears started streaming down her face. "I couldn't stop it. He said he'd kill us both if I interfered." I believed him. The social workers exchanged looks. "Ma'am, we're going to need you to come with us. There are resources for domestic violence survivors, but right now, Tommy can't stay in this house." "Where will he go?" "Emergency foster placement until we can assess the situation." Tommy, who had been listening from the hallway, felt his heart drop. Foster care. Strangers. Another place where nobody wanted him. Then his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Don't worry, kid. Working on it. H." The emergency custody hearing was 3 days later. Tommy sat in a courtroom, small and scared, not understanding most of what was happening. Words like temporary placement and guardian ad litem and best interests of the child flew over his head. Then the judge asked a question that cut through everything. "Tommy, is there anywhere you feel safe? Anyone you trust?" Tommy looked at the social worker, at his mother, who had been separated from Rick and was sitting in the gallery looking broken, at the lawyers and officials who saw him as a case number. Then he looked at the back of the courtroom. Hank was there, standing against the wall, arms crossed, watching. "Him," Tommy said, pointing. "I trust him." The judge looked at Hank, at the leather vest, at the patches. "And who is this?" "His name is Hank. He's my friend." Tommy paused. "He said he couldn't be my dad, but he's the only person who's tried to help me." Murmurs in the courtroom. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Morrison, is it? Would you approach the bench?" Hank walked forward. He looked out of place in this formal setting, a wolf among sheep, but his voice was steady. "Your Honor, you're affiliated with the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club?" "Yes, ma'am." "And you've been involved in this child situation how?" "Tommy walked into our clubhouse 3 days ago. He was covered in bruises and asked if I could be his father." Hank's voice caught slightly. "I lost my own son 3 years ago. I couldn't help him, but I could help Tommy. By bringing 79 motorcycles to his school, by showing him and everyone else that he matters, that someone sees him, that he's not invisible." The judge studied Hank for a long moment. "Mr. Morrison, this court cannot place a child with someone without proper vetting, background checks, home studies. The process exists for a reason." "I understand that, Your Honor. However," she leaned forward, "I'm ordering that any temporary foster placement include regular visitation with Mr. Morrison, supervised initially. I'm also ordering an expedited home study to determine if longer-term placement might be appropriate." Tommy's heart soared. "Really? This is unusual, Tommy, but so is your situation. Mr. Morrison has resources, community support, and clearly cares about your well-being. That counts for something." She looked at Hank. "Don't make me regret this." "I won't, Your Honor, I promise." The foster home was temporary. A nice older couple named the Hendersons. They had a spare room, a gentle dog, and decades of experience with traumatized children. They didn't push, didn't demand, just provided stability. Hank visited every day. Sometimes they talked, sometimes they just sat together, watching TV or working on homework. Hank discovered Tommy was smart, really smart, when he wasn't too terrified to think. You could be anything, Hank told him one afternoon. Doctor, lawyer, engineer, you've got the brain for it. Nobody ever told me that before. Then nobody was paying attention. The home study took 6 weeks. Social workers interviewed Hank, interviewed his brothers, visited the clubhouse, which had been hastily cleaned and kid-proofed, examined his finances, his history, his support system. They found things they expected: a criminal record, though nothing violent, association with a motorcycle club the FBI had watched for decades. They also found things they didn't expect: a man who had volunteered at homeless shelters after his son died, a club that had raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for children's charities, a community of men who, despite their reputation, had strict codes about protecting women and children. This is unconventional, the social worker told her supervisor, but unconventional isn't the same as bad. And that boy lights up when Hank walks in the room. You're recommending approval? I'm recommending a trial period. 6 months. Let's see how it goes. Tommy moved in with Hank on a Saturday in October. The clubhouse had been transformed. A bedroom upstairs decorated with things Tommy had picked out himself. A desk for homework, a bookshelf already filling with books from brothers who remembered what it was like to be a kid who needed escape. This is really mine, Tommy asked, looking around the room. Really yours? And you're really? I mean, you want me to stay? Hank crouched down to Tommy's level. Let me tell you something, kid. When my son died, I thought my life was over. I stopped feeling anything, stopped wanting anything, spent 3 years just waiting to die. Tommy listened with wide eyes. Then you walked into the clubhouse, this scared, hurt, brave little kid who asked if I could be his dad. Hank's voice caught. You woke me up, Tommy. You reminded me that I was still alive, that I could still help someone, still love someone. So, you want me? More than anything in the world. Tommy threw his arms around Hank's neck. I love you, he said. I know I'm not supposed to say that yet. I know it's too fast, but I do. I love you. Hank held him tight. I love you too, kid, and I'm going to spend every day proving it. Epilogue. 2 years later. The adoption was finalized on Tommy's 11th birthday. 79 bikers attended the courthouse ceremony. They filled the hallways, the lobby, spilled out onto the steps. Lawyers and judges and clerks stared at the leather-clad army that had come to celebrate a child becoming a son. When the judge signed the final papers, making Hank legally Tommy's father, a cheer went up that shook the building. Tommy stood in front of them all, holding the certificate, grinning so wide it looked like his face might split. I have a dad, he said. I have a real dad. Hank picked him up. Harder now. Tommy was getting big, and held him high. You always did, kid. It just took us a while to find each other. Later that night, at the party the club threw, Tommy gave a speech. He stood on a chair so everyone could see him, this kid who had walked into a biker bar 2 years ago with nothing but bruises and desperate hope. When I was 9, I asked a stranger if he could be my dad. I know that sounds crazy, but I was out of options. Nobody wanted me. Nobody helped me. I was invisible. He looked at Hank. But then I met someone who saw me, who actually saw me. And he didn't just help me once. He changed my whole life. He gave me a family, not just him, but all of you. Tommy looked around at the room full of bikers. Everyone thinks you're scary. Everyone thinks you're bad. But you're the best people I know. You showed up when nobody else would. You protected me when nobody else cared. You're my uncles and my brothers and my family. He raised his glass of root beer. To the Hells Angels, the best family a kid could ask for. To family. 79 voices roared. Hank wiped his eyes. He didn't hide it. These were the best tears he'd ever cried. Tommy jumped down from the chair and ran to him. Thanks, Dad. For what? For saying yes. When I asked if you could be my dad, you could have said no. You could have sent me away, but you didn't. I couldn't, Tommy. From the moment you walked in that door, you were mine. I just didn't know it yet." Tommy hugged him. "I knew," he said. "I knew the second I saw you. I just needed you to figure it out." Hank laughed. "This kid, this incredible, resilient, loving kid. How did you know?" "Because you looked at me like I mattered. Nobody ever looked at me like that before." Tommy pulled back and grinned. "Plus, I could tell you needed a kid. And I needed a dad. So it just made sense." It did make sense, in the strangest, most beautiful way possible. A broken man, a broken boy, finding each other in the last place anyone would look, becoming whole, becoming family, becoming exactly what they were always meant to be. The end.